What's going on, everyone? Kyle here. I hope you're having an amazing day today so far. I am going to be coming to you with a bunch of answers to some questions that I've gotten over the last week or so, and I've actually noticed a pretty decent trend as far as a lot of people are asking me, camera setup and lighting and all this type of stuff. I do think that a lot of you guys are watching the channel, getting inspired maybe to start your own real estate YouTube channel, which I love. I do believe that is a huge opportunity for many agents out there. And I know personally many agents in my group that have started that task of starting their own YouTube channel. Some are further along. I have some agents that are maybe a year and a half, 2 years in, and they are hitting a home run. They've gotten a lot of deals. They've increased their business. Some basically tripled their business, quadrupled their business, gone from 8 million to over 30 million in volume in 1 year. And so, I know the possibilities. So I'm going to spend some time talking a little bit about equipment and going into detail there, but I also just have some general real estate questions as well that I'm going to answer for you guys today. Let's go ahead and just dive right into these. And if you're seeing this and you haven't already, give this video a like. And if you are just seeing my YouTube channel for the very first time, make sure to subscribe because I put out 3 new videos every single week and I go live every single Tuesday. So definitely stay tuned. This takes usually we're going to do a 1 hour for this live stream. And if you've got any questions, definitely put them into the chat box. And also if you're watching this on a replay after the fact, then still go ahead and put the questions that you have into the comments, and I'll use those questions for my next week's video. All right, well, let's go ahead and dive right in. I've got some of the first questions here let's see, do I recommend Google My Business? And that is actually, it's getting more and more popular here recently. And so if you're not familiar with Google My Business, I'll go ahead and maybe when we do a quick share screen here, just so you guys can see what it is. Let's go ahead and move this over to screen share. There we go. Let's take that down. All right. So Google My Business is over here on the right-hand side, as you can see where it says Kyle Handy Real Estate, eXp Realty. It's got some Google reviews. It's got your office address, your phone number, all of that good stuff. And, should you set up a profile? Absolutely. The answer to that is yes. Google My Business is getting more and more popular now. Especially for local-based businesses, which in real estate, that's typically what we all are, right? And so it's very simple to set it up. There's a Google Business app that you can download on your phone, and it's pretty robust. Or, of course, you can just do it on Google. So if you just type in Google My Business, and there you go. Get a Google business profile, get listed on Google. So what ended up happening is Google used to have something called like Google Plus, or it was like kind of they were going into like the social media type of thing, and that ended up kind of failing out. But what came of it is this Google My Business and setting up a profile for this, and this has really taken off. And so you're going to want this. You're going to want to focus on getting some reviews for it. And filling out the profile entirely. And then once you have a profile, there's definitely some things that you can do to kind of optimize your SEO. So let me see here. Let me pull up my notes that I've got for this particular one. So the first thing that you're going to do is it's pretty interesting. You can use images. You can add images to your Google My Business profile. And one of the things that Google looks at when reviewing your full profile to see if they're going to recommend it to other people is the images and where they're geotagged. Like if they're tagged locally, that's going to help your business out. And so now if you are taking pictures with like your phone, typically your phone will geotag those images automatically. And then if you upload them straight away, then that's how you can kind of make sure those images are geotagged. But if you've already got images on there, or maybe you're not using your phone, you've got some other stuff, there's a website you can use called GeoImager, and it's just GeoImgr.com. geo-imager, and you can add in geotags to your images. So that way, if you're San Antonio or whatever market you're in, you want to geotag those with your market. Also, citations. That's something that you might hear thrown around when it comes to Google My Business. Citations are almost like the equivalent of a backlink for a website. And what a backlink is like, let's say that I've got kylehandy.com. The way that Google ranks websites when people are searching is how many other websites link over to kylehandy.com. That's a ranking factor. If I've got 1,000 websites that link to kylehandy.com, I'm going to rank higher in the search results than somebody who may only have a website that has no websites linking to them or 2 websites linking to them. And it's the same idea with a Google My Business profile. And so there's 2 places that I recommend that you can hire for getting citations on your Google My Business. And that is Moz, M-O-Z, and Bright Local, one word. They've got basically a service that they do where you get your Google My Business up and running, and then they will go out and find businesses that will link to your profile, and which then overall will help your business to rank higher if somebody was to search for a term, real estate agent in San Antonio or real estate agent in Denver. It's going to make your profile pop up before somebody else. Or the other popular one is real estate agent near me, real estate company near me. All of these searches are taking place in Google, and you would love to be able to show up in those top results when people search for that. All right, let's see what else on there. Oh, there's a spot in there for products. And so a lot of businesses will use that to kind of highlight some of their most popular products. But for us as listing agents, we can certainly put listings in there. So definitely put your own listings. But then if you also have the permission to list other properties that are within your brokerage from another listing agent, you get the written permission of them. Go ahead and put some of those as well, because having products and switching out products routinely on your Google My Business will help to also be a ranking factor on there. Okay, cool. The next question came in, and I don't remember who asked this one, but they asked about having like what kind of an email address should they use. So for instance, I think they're using a Gmail email address where it's like, you're a real estate agent at gmail.com. And they're wondering if that is, okay to do, if they should use their brokerage's email, or what they should do. And so what I would say on that is that number one, I think you need to own your own email address, right? So whatever that is, if it is, you're a real estate agent at gmail.com, then that's fine. That's not the ideal scenario. I'll tell you what the ideal scenario is here in a second. But number one is you need to own your own email address. So even if you're at Keller Williams, you're at Remax, you're at EXP, you're at Century 21, you're going to get an email address with that company. I would highly recommend you see if you can forward the emails from that email address to one that you own yourself. I have heard horror stories of agents who leave a brokerage and then all of a sudden, their emails get shut off. They have no access to past emails. They lose a lot of information and data from, years past. And that's just not a good situation that you want to be forced to be in. And so I would say, think about that from the beginning and have an email address that you own. And so, if it's Gmail, that's fine. But ideally what you want to do is you want to purchase a domain. Like, what is your brand going to be? Is it a personal brand? Do you have like a team or something like that you're, creating a team name? But find the domain that you want to own. So maybe it's sanantoniorealestate.com. I'm sure that one is not available. That would be very nice if that was, but it would be very expensive too if it was. But find a domain that you can own. A lot of domains are like $10 a year, so they're not super expensive. And then once you own that domain, you can set up email with it. So for instance, kylehandy.com, I own that domain. I can set up email for it. And so like I could have the email address kyle@kylehandy.com. And that would be, I think, more of a professional look than just having the gmail.com extension at the end. So, that would be the way I would set it up is I would find a domain, pick it out, get my email to be like my first name at whatever my domain and branding is going to be. And then I would forward all of my brokerage emails to it, and then on all of like my business cards, my email signatures, all that kind of stuff would always have that email address that I own on it. So really, nobody would be using, like, let's say I was at Keller Williams and it was kyle.handy@kellerwilliams.com. I would never put that publicly facing, but then if like I get internal, emails from the brokerage, they're still going to get forwarded to my Kyle Handy email. So I just have to check one email address and I'm not going to miss anything. But that is kind of how I would set that up. So if you got any further questions on that, definitely let me know. Let's see. Let's jump into the next question here. Let's see. Yeah, if I'm a new agent, if I host an open house for a listing agent and find a buyer, how does that work? Do I get a commission or what happens? Yeah, absolutely. Shoot, that's the goal, right? So like in one of my videos in the past, I talked about doing open houses for other agents, especially in the beginning when you don't have your own listings, or even when you do. It's still better to kind of identify an area that you want to become the expert in, and try and really be the open house expert and do open houses on all of the new listings that kind of hit that neighborhood or that zip code, whatever that might be. So, in a lot of times, those aren't going to be your own listings. So, you're going to want to reach out to those agents and do open houses for them. And so, yeah, so when you're doing that though, then the goal is to be able to, get a buyer from it, right? So you want to be able to take all the leads from that deal. And if you can help out the listing agent by finding them a buyer, then you most definitely should be able to receive a commission for that. So, I wouldn't ask for any other type of compensation. So like if you're doing an open house for a listing agent, I'm not going to ask anything of that listing agent. I'm going to tell them, hey, I'm going to handle this. You don't have to think about it one bit. I'm going to make it professional. It's going to look great. I'm going to give you feedback at the end of it. I'm going to provide, snacks and appetizers or whatever. And I don't expect anything of you, Mr. or Mrs. Listing Agent, because you're allowing me to do this, right? And so I want to make it as easy for them as possible. But then, of course, if I do procure a buyer for it, then I would expect that they would pay me a commission, just like they would if any other buyer or any other buyer's agent brought them a client. So yeah, so you definitely get the compensation for that. And then hopefully too, the other part is that you can still pick up sellers by doing open houses. A lot of times you'll get nosy neighbors, you'll get, just regular neighbors that are coming by to see, especially if you start doing a bunch of open houses in the same area, they're going to want to see what you're doing. A lot of times they don't know who the listing agent is, but they see your signs for open houses and they're going to think that you're doing a lot of business in that area. And if they're considering selling, they may just swing by just to say hi to you, to get to know you, to let them know let you know their situation. And then also if you're door knocking prior to the open house, just to let them know about the open house. A lot of times there, you may meet some people that potentially will want to sell soon. So, and you would of course get all of the benefits of that as well. Nothing that you would need to do for the original listing agent of the open house that you're doing. So, all right, cool. Let's see. Had a question in here. This one they asked about multi-line dialers. So in one of my videos, I think where I was talking about Red X, I mentioned, that you usually will have the option to go with a single line dialer or a multi-line dialer. And this person had asked, as a new agent, I'm not sure how multiple calls at once would work if there's only one of me to answer. And do we still need to check the do not call list? Yeah. So, and then there was another question that said, do you find that you get a lot of do not call numbers on RedX? So that's the cool thing. RedX scrubs for the do not call list for you automatically. And I don't think that there's really a whole lot of difference between the services like RedX and Vulcan 7 and all that kind of stuff as far as like percentage of numbers that are on the do not call list. I find that I still get, very accurate data on RedX, and they've already scrubbed the do not call. So I really don't even know how many are on it. I just know how many are not that I'm able to call. And so, I wouldn't worry too much about that. But now, like with reference to like how the multi-line dialer works, I would say for sure if you're just getting started like dialing, use a single line dialer to start with. Even that's going to feel very quick, very fast because I mean it's like you get off the call and it's already dialing the next number. And so I mean you can pause it, of course, but it is going to feel very quick. The multi-line dialer, the way that that works is it's even faster. It's basically dialing three numbers at once, and whoever answers first, if the other two numbers are still, going, then, but you got somebody now on the line, it's going to keep those two other calls going. And then if they don't answer, it's going to drop a voicemail, which you pre-record. But if, let's say, a second one answers, then it will hang up. And then usually what ends up happening is, that person will call back or, something along that nature. And you're already going to still be on the phone probably with that first person that you connected to. And so I believe the way that it would work is because it's been a second since I did the triple line dialing, but I believe the way that it works is once if somebody calls back, you're going to get a notification that like, hey, a call is coming in from this number, and if you're still on the line, I believe you can have it set up to call that number back immediately after you get off the call with the one that you're on. As you can see, a lot of that is very quick. There's a lot going on. You definitely want to master doing a single line dialing first. But I promise you though, that single line dialing and triple line dialing is entirely possible. It might take you a little while, maybe a month or two or three before you feel comfortable enough to move up to the triple line dialer. But when you do, you will make a lot more calls because even with a single line dialer, it does go quick, but it also goes slow a little bit because I mean you're basically, yes, it's calling people consistently, but a lot of times you'll find like 20 to 30% of the people pick up their phone, right? And so like it might have to call five people for you to get one connection. So you're going to wait through it, dialing, and then it'll drop a voicemail, then it'll dial the next one and drop a voicemail and dial the next one and drop a voicemail, and then you might finally get in touch with somebody. Whereas with triple line, it's like calling three at once. And so you still may not get in touch with somebody right away, but usually you're going to connect with somebody a lot faster each time. And so that's kind of how that works. Definitely recommend it, for more experienced, but just start out with the single dialer for right away. All right. Somebody asks, what are the cons of eXp Realty? And that's actually a really good question. I get that a lot when I'm actually doing like personal, partner calls where I'm talking to agents one-on-one. A lot about eXp Realty sounds really good, and people think like, oh my gosh, there's got to be some kind of a catch. What am I not understanding? Like all this type of stuff. And the first thing that I'll say is there's not like a catch. Like it's not like we're trying to confuse anybody or like that we're pulling, the wool over your eyes and, like not like there's things that when you get here, you're like, oh, like you guys lied to me or anything like that. What I will say though, like as far as cons go of EXP is it does really depend a lot on you personally as far as how you like to interact and, and also how you kind of work best with like, kind of getting information and even just like the motivation to do work. That's the biggest, I guess, con you could say is because we are cloud-based and virtual, we are super collaborative. There's a lot of, support and help and training and all this stuff that you're going to get. But you've got to take the initiative, and I mean, the same could be said too with any brokerage, even a brick and mortar. But typically when you have a brick and mortar and especially if you're like a newer agent, it feels a little bit more, natural to go into the office and you're going to kind of just absorb, information that way. You're going to get community and culture that way. But when you're with a cloud-based or a virtual brokerage, you definitely have to take the initiative to like go out there and to plug in, to like meet people and actually like make relationships with other agents at EXP. Like you've got to take the initiative because if you don't, then, and especially because it's virtual and cloud-based, you will just kind of be on your own, right? And that's not the best way to work at EXP. I think that, some people think that that's just the way it is at EXP, but that's absolutely not true. Being that we're cloud based, I've found that I work the best in this type of model. I love like the culture, the community, the collaboration that I get here. But I also have forced myself to plug in, pretty much from day one. I was meeting agents, I was trying to work my way up and get to know, the who's who, and and just kind of collaborate with people that are all over the country. But a lot of that fell on my shoulders, and I was willing to go do that. If that doesn't sound like something that you're naturally going to do or want to do, and you feel like, well, I'm just better, meeting people in person, belly to belly, or being able to go walk in, then that would probably be the biggest con, I would say, of EXP Realty, right? Because that doesn't really exist in a whole lot of markets. Now, I will say in some markets there are, little satellite offices that team leaders will pop up. Or there's like in San Antonio, we do a weekly event every Friday to, share the model of EXP, but we also stick around and just kind of chat and communicate with other EXP agents locally here. But short of that, like if your local market doesn't have something like that, then there's probably not a lot of in-person, interaction happening. And so then you'd basically have to wait until, like, we do 2 EXP corporate events every year, and we also have a couple agent sponsored events that we do throughout the year. So you'd have to kind of like figure out where those are to go meet with people in person. And so it just depends, again, like what your style is and how you like to interact with people. But that would be the biggest thing that I always just try and make people aware of. It's not necessarily a con in my mind, but it definitely could be a con in some people's mind. And so it's just good knowing kind of what you need to do, like what your responsibilities are going into it to get the most out of EXP. So that way you don't like leave 2, 3 months later and be like, oh, well, like, nobody was here for me, or I didn't have this. It's like everybody is here for you and there's a ton of stuff for you, but you really got to take the initiative and learn it, figure it out, and whatnot. So that would be how I guess I'd kind of talk about that one. Other short of that though, I mean, really all the stuff like EXP's info is like public, like not only are we a publicly traded company, so like our financials are public, like, our business model, like everything is public. We've got presentations online where it talks about your split, talks about, compensation, as far as the revenue share, it talks about the stock awards. It shows, some of the training. You can even get a 2-week guest pass into EXP World just to see how that works. And, if that's something that you would like to do as far as, getting support from like your broker. If you don't feel that that's, the way that you want support, well, you'll know it ahead of time, right? You can go and get that guest pass and check it out. In fact, if you want a guest pass, I'll put a link down in the description below of this video. And you can go grab a 2-week guest pass and check out EXP World for free. So, I mean, we try to like put everything out there so that way there's no like, oh, we got you, and now you didn't know this. So yeah, so that's what I would say about cons for that. I also had another question, says, do you find that you get similar conversion rates, cost per conversion, when running leads to attract home sellers using a home value landing page or similar call to action as compared to like Google pay-per-click for buyers? And I will say absolutely not. They are much more expensive to get home seller leads, and typically the conversion is not very good, in my opinion. The conversion already with like home buyer leads and the average cost of like a home buyer lead on Google is roughly, I see in some markets anywhere from like $15 all the way up till, $40 to $50, right, on the very high end. Most markets though are around $15 to maybe $20, but definitely you can get into the higher end in some markets where they're 40 to 50 bucks. And this is of course if you're kind of running them yourself, or if you've got a good campaign manager that they're not charging you an arm and a leg to run your campaign for you. That's kind of what you should expect. But the nice thing about that is with Google leads, I do feel they are pretty high quality leads for buyers. And what I mean by that is like essentially like Zillow leads, some people, they like them, they don't like them, are actually they're pretty high quality. However, you're going to pay more money for them, than a Google lead. And the reason why, let me explain kind of the idea behind this, is that most Zillow leads, what they're doing is they're going on to Google and they're typing homes for sale in San Antonio, Texas, or homes for sale in 78070, like a certain zip code. And Zillow, because they're such a big company, organically ranks number one typically on your search results. And so the people who search that, they're already like a higher quality lead because they have search intent. Somebody who searches that is obviously looking to buy a home sometime soon. And but then they hit Zillow, and then Zillow sends those leads out that register on their website to agents that pay for them, right? And they'll upcharge and they'll charge $50 to $100 to $200 a lead sometimes when you start averaging out your cost of what you're paying for that zip code divided by how many leads you get. But if you go for Google and you just run your own Google campaign and set up kind of the same funnel, you can't organically rank number one for those search results, but you can pay to rank number one by running those Google ads. So if somebody searches home for sale in San Antonio, Texas, your website and your landing page that you've built for that to capture the lead will get the same people, right? So that's why the quality of the lead is about on par. And from what I've seen, about 1 out of 20, about 5% is a good conversion rate for Google leads and Zillow leads. And so, if you're doing the right things with them, speed to lead, calling them quickly, building up a, relationship, adding value to them, following up, you got to do all of those just to see that conversion rate. But even still, if you factor that in, you look at okay, let's say it took you 20 leads to close a deal and it cost you, say, $20 to get a lead, that's still only $400, and most people, most markets, your average commission is going to be far greater than that. That's why the opportunity is so good. Now, when you get to Zillow is like trying to make as much money as they can, that they can squeeze out from agents, to where the agents can still make some money, but but Zillow's going to try and get as much money as they can too, right? As the middleman. And so if they think that they can charge you, and they don't charge you per lead usually, they'll charge you per zip code, but they know how many leads typically come in for that zip code already. And so let's say they're like, well, we're going to charge, $100 per lead because you're going to get, let's say 10 leads. So for that zip code, it's $1,000 a month. That's typically kind of how Zillow works. And then, let's just look at that conversion. Let's say it's 20 to 1, and it's $100 a lead now. Now you're paying, what's that, $2,000 for a closed deal, which, you're probably still making money on that, right? If your average commission is higher than that, then you're still going to be in the positive on the return on investment. But you could have made more if you had done it Google and you kind of took Zillow out of the middle right there, right? And so that's the idea. That's the thought about that and how that works. But now when you go and start doing it for seller leads, because I've done them myself, that all goes out the window. It is very hit or miss. To get a seller lead, those the automated home valuation landing pages, those have, over time converted less and less and less to where it's almost like, nobody will do them anymore. So I really, honestly, I have, I'll have one on my website for free or whatever, but I'm not trying to run traffic to them because they don't convert very well. And even if they do convert, it's still very difficult to convert that seller into an actual client of yours. And so, for listings, if you're really focused on listings and that's what you want, you're still better off, either number one, dialing and, calling expireds for sale by owners. Number two, and this would be my preferred route, is adding value through video and doing YouTube videos that speak to sellers in your market, and just basically trying to get in front of people who may potentially sell their home and offer them value. It doesn't even have to necessarily be how to sell your home or 3 things you need to know to sell your home. Literally adding value to your local market. Let's just say you were doing things about best free things to do in San Antonio. You got to realize families, or even, just couples or individual people may search for that term, come across your stuff and say, oh, wow, this guy's a realtor and he's making this content. That's awesome. And the cool thing is about 1 out of 7 people every year turn over their homes, right? So if you get 700 views, that's like 100 people that may potentially want to list their home that year. And if you're adding value and you're showing up multiple times for adding value, you can have an opportunity to do that, right? So that would be still, I think, one of the best opportunities, especially if you're like, I don't want to do, phone calls. I don't want to cold call. I don't get a lot of for sale by owners in my area, whatever it might be. That's, I think, a great opportunity as well. Like I said, doing open houses. Yes, that's traditionally more on buyer side, but you still can pick up listings from it, especially if you do it the right way. So yeah, but I don't think that I would run Google ads and do that for a seller landing page. Not in today's market. You'd be better off again, if you have like a good video that maybe, shows value, I would run ads to that, that way it's like, hey, you can kind of get eyeballs on your seller, value, like whatever the value is in that video that you're adding to sellers, you get more people to watch that. People may say, hey, I like this person, I like this guy, I like this girl, I want to sell my house with this person, right? That would be, I think, more fruitful than just sending them to an automated valuation page. Now what I would do is I would have a video that adds value already to some extent, but then I'd put a call to action in there that actually specifically addresses it. And I would say like, hey, you probably see there's a ton of automated valuations out there. What I'd love to do for you is just set up a quick 20-minute Zoom call where I can get your address and we can kind of jump on a Zoom and I can show you the comps and kind of the numbers in your area and get a little better idea of what you're working with as far as your home and give you a more personalized valuation. It's still not going to be if I were to come out and see your home in person, but I should be able to ballpark it, right? Doing something like that where it's like, hey, you're addressing that those things are not accurate. Like, hey, Zestimates, they're not accurate. The automated valuations on a lot of agents' homes, they're not accurate. But I will personally meet with you for 20 or 30 minutes, grab a time on my Calendly, which if you don't know what Calendly is, you definitely need to check that out. And that way they can book a time automatically. And that would be kind of the flow that I would go for doing that is you can run an ad to a video that adds value and then have a call to action in that video that says, I would love to do a custom home evaluation for you. All right. So now that being said, we're going to change gears here and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the equipment that I use because a couple of the questions that I got was, Kyle, what kind of lights are you using for the colored background behind you? I got another one that says, Kyle, what's your camera and lighting gear if it won't take too much of your time? So I'm going to address those questions and just talk a little bit about the different camera gear. So let me share my screen here again. 1 second. There we go. All right, so I've got actually a blog post on my my website, kylehandy.com/blog/learn/real estate video equipment, all with dashes between it. And if you go here, these are kind of like my most up-to-date equipment that I'm using. And so I've got two kind of setups that I recommend for most people. Now, this setup that's on here right now is only on here because my preferred setup is out of stock, like pretty much everywhere. And so until that becomes regularly available, then I am still recommending this one, which is the Sony ZV-1. However, there is a newer model that actually has an interchangeable lens setup, whereas the ZV-1 has just a fixed lens. Some people like that, where like they don't have to worry about swapping lenses. This one has a bit of a view, like a zoom, so you can go in and out. And it is a good lens. Like things do look clear. It's got gives you some of the blurry background. But I think as you get a little bit more advanced, you may want the ability to swap lenses. And so, fortunately, let's see here, Amazon, Sony ZV-E10. So there is a camera out now that you can see here, currently unavailable, called the ZV-E10. So, I mean, if you want to wait a little while, or if you're able to find one of these on eBay or something like that, then, this might be something you look into. But this is, you can see here, interchangeable lens. There's no lens on that one. You can buy it with lenses. But I would recommend just buying the body only, and I'll show you what lens you'll buy with it. But it's about $700 if you can find it. Now, if you buy it used, probably you might even pay more than what it costs if you could find it new, just because of the availability. but this one's awesome. It's got a flip out screen. It's a what you call a crop sensor camera. So, there's basically two types. You got crop sensor and you got full frame. Full frame, there's some advantages of it, but for most people, like, getting started with all this is actually be an amazing upgrade. I mean, it's way better than like any kind of phone that you have. Even if you got a brand new iPhone, yes, they got great video and great pictures, but it's really hard to compare against a full, mirrorless DSLR kind of camera. And so, I mean, just the sensor alone on this thing is way bigger than any kind of sensor that your phone can have, right? And so that's kind of where, the phones are using, a lot of technology to try and enhance it and make it look really good, but it's still not going to be as good as what you can get with a full-on camera like this. And so I love the ZVE10. And if you go with the ZVE10, there's this amazing lens. It's a Sigma 16 millimeter f1.4. 1.4, that's like super blurry background. So 16 millimeters is pretty wide angle. Now, the one thing that you've got to realize is that there's something called a crop factor with crop sensors. So remember I said there's crop sensors and full frame sensors. If you use a crop sensor camera, which the ZVE10 is with like this lens here, you're going to have to multiply the lens focal length by 1.5 times. So 16 millimeters is actually 16 times 1.5, which is 24 millimeters. So it's not as wide angle. Like right now, I'm shooting on 20 millimeters full frame. So it's a true 20 millimeters. And so 24 is still pretty wide, but it's definitely not super wide. So you just need to consider that. And really the only thing that matters, like if you're putting a camera on a tripod, it's not going to matter that much because you just may have to sit back a little bit further with 24 millimeters versus like 16. The only reason you'd want something that's like a true 16 millimeter is if you're like vlogging and you're like trying to hold it out in front of your hand, or hold it out in front of your head, and you only got maybe 2 or 3 feet, I don't think anybody's arms are 3 feet, but like 2 feet in front of you. Then you want it to be more wide angle, so that way it's not like just a picture of your nose and your eyes and stuff, right? But 24 millimeters, if you can throw it on a tripod and put it 3 feet, 3.5 feet away from you, you're going to get a nice, you'll be in full frame, you'll be in the frame and it will be just fine. And you'll have a nice blurry background. The other part that you might want to consider is like, if you need something even wider, is like if you're shooting in a super small room, like 10 by 10 or something, then you might need wider because you're not going to have as much opportunity to put that camera as far in front of you. But even like a 13-foot by 12-foot room or something like that, you'd be fine with this lens. And so what you'd need to do is you either buy a ZV-1 and it's got the lens built into it and you just go to town with that. Or if you can find you a ZV-E10, you can purchase this lens separate, and altogether it's about $1,000. The camera's $700. I think this lens is like 3 something. Let's see here. The lens is $361. And that's going to give you super cool video. I mean, literally, I'll show you what I'm using right now, but you would be hard pressed to find the difference between what I'm using and what this would give you, if you're using the ZVE10 with this. But my setup's like $4,500, whereas this is like $1,000. So you're not going to get much difference. So, for most people, that $1,000, that's what I would go with. Now, you come down here, and I actually need to swap this one out. This is the A7C. This is actually still a great camera. Let me see here. It's $1,798, and and basically this is full frame. So now you're stepping up to a full frame camera, and so the benefits of that is it's better for like low light. So like if you're shooting where you don't have a lot of lighting, it can give you a better image there. But then also, it's going to give you more wide angle opportunities because the lens is available. If you find like a 16 millimeter lens, it's going to be 16 millimeter. You don't need to go and find like a 10 millimeter lens just so on a crop sensor so you can get it to be the equivalent of about a 16 millimeter. And so there's some benefits, but you're going to pay for it, right? So for most people, I'd say you probably don't need to do this, especially as your first camera. If you're ready to upgrade, then that's a great option. Also, the one that I'm using right now is the Sony a7 IV that just came out. I love it. It's $2,500 though, so a bit more expensive. And and then there's a lot of subtleties like why I did, why I went with this one. It's got more megapixels, so it's almost kind of more of like a hybrid camera. So that way, if I take pictures, it's got, it takes a little bit more high megapixel pictures. Video wise, it's not going to really be that much of a benefit. Like it still shoots at 4K. I mean, there's some things that could be said about, that it's down sampled because it's actually shooting higher than 4K. 4K, it's shooting in 7K, and then it's over sampled, and then it down converts it to 4K. So I mean, the image is really really nice. Whereas something like the A7C, and go back over to it. You can see here this is 24 megapixels, and I think that the A7 IV is 33 megapixels. And so, but either way, both are good. This one does have a flip out screen, so it doesn't show it right there. Let's see if I can find an image. No, it doesn't show it, but yeah, that screen on the back swivels around, so you still can get the flip out screen. And it's a great camera. I just don't know. You need to, before you would buy something like this, I would make sure you even know and understand the difference between full frame and crop sensor. If you don't know the difference and why you would want it, you're probably better off just going with a crop sensor for now, because you're going to still get a great image, great video quality, and all that good stuff. So that being said, let's jump now into, so that's the camera setup. We'll go into like the audio setup. So for me, this Rode Video Mic Pro, these are great. You could even just get like the micro. Like this one's pretty expensive. Let's see, it's $181. But if you get like even the Rode mic, let's see here. Like I've used the Video Mic Go, the lightweight one. That one's just fine. I've also used this one, the Video Micro compact on camera. That one's just fine too, to be honest with you. I mean, these shotgun mics, I mean, they do sound good, especially like if I'm vlogging or if I'm out of the studio, this is what I use. But when I'm in the studio, it doesn't matter if you've got like the highest Rode Video Mic, Pro or whatever. It's still not going to sound as good as actually getting like a condenser microphone, which is what that is. That's what I'm speaking into right now, right? And so, I mean, if you're going to be in a studio environment, getting a condenser microphone is the way to go. If you're going to be on the go, then having something strapped to your camera is going to be obviously the better choice. Because with this condenser mic, that's stationary. You're not moving that thing. It's going to sit there on your desk, and that's it. You can put it on a mic arm. I've just got mine on a little stand, but you can put it on a mic arm. But the thing is, here's the pros and cons. The Rode Video Mic that goes on your camera, it plugs into your camera, and literally when you record video, it's one file. You've got your audio and your video as one file that you can edit or send to an editor, and it's pretty simple. Whereas when you use a condenser microphone like this, most of them will not plug into your camera. They plug into either your computer through USB, or they will plug into a separate like audio recording device that you'll get like a audio file on like a little thumb drive or something. And then you'll need to combine the two. So like send them to your editor, or you need to edit and basically add on that audio to the video file that your camera records. So it's a little bit more work. It's not, it's not impossible, it just takes more work to do it like that. But the quality that you'll get from a condenser microphone just sounds so much better. I mean, it makes you have kind of that more like professional, like, I don't even know how to say it, just like where you sound like an audio or like a radio DJ or something, right? Like it's funny because, I mean, when I've done videos with just it on my camera, I mean, it sounds fine. It sounds more like how I probably sound. Then you put it on a condenser, and whether you're a female or a male, like it just makes you sound, I don't know, different. Like it makes you sound more clear. And so, I definitely love the condenser mics. Headphones are important. Like for me, if I'm doing a interview with somebody, that way I don't get feedback. Like, because if I'm speaking here and I'm, listening to it on my computer, like if I didn't have headphones, then it's picking up feedback and it's affecting the recording. And so, I'll put a headphone on if I've got other people speaking. Let's see, speakers, just so I can listen back to my audio. Here's a little light that you can put onto your camera if you're shooting like in a dark area. It just attaches to the hot shoe up there, and you just charge it before, and it's super bright. So, I mean, it will be good for it. Variable ND filter. This is only needed if you're out shooting, like, again, outside, if you're on the go. There's kind of some mechanics that go into it that's a little bit more advanced, but like basically if you want to keep that blurry background, that real blurry background, and you're shooting in a ton of light like outdoors, you're going to need to, it's almost like putting sunglasses on your camera, so that way you can keep the blurry background and not be overexposed. So that's kind of what an ND filter does. You know, so if that's going to be something you're going to do, you're going to shoot outside where there's a lot of lighting, you will want to look into that. Here's a lighting kit. So this is what I use in front of me. So I put one of these on each side. I've got, you know, one kind of 45 degrees in front of me this way, one 45 degrees in front of me on the other side. And then behind me, I use these GVM RGB lights, which I think that was the actual, you know, initial question, is what lights am I using to light my background? It's these ones right here, the GVM RGB LED video lighting kit. And it actually comes with 3 of them. And so what you can do, and this is what I've done now, is I use 2 of those behind me. I use one of those as the light that's 45 degrees in front of me. And then I ended up ditching these, and I went with just a better softbox light for the other side, for my main side that I want lit up. Because ideally, the way that you want to do it, it's called 3-point lighting. And you've got one side that's like your main lighting. You can actually see it's like this side. It's a little bit brighter than this side, right? So you put your good light, your brightest light over on one side. You still have a separate light on this side. I forget what that one's called, but it's just another light that you have on this side. So it's not completely, it's called your fill light. So you got your key light, you got your fill light, just so it's not completely black and I'm looking like Two-Face or something over here, right? And you got a little bit of light coming on this side. And then typically with 3-point lighting, if you didn't have like color lights behind, you'd have a third light that's either shooting behind you at like the back of your head, or you have it above you as like a hair light that's shining down, which gives you separation from the background. But if you're using color lights behind you like this, that already kind of naturally is going to separate you from the background. So, you know, it kind of gives a 3-dimensional look. And so that's kind of how you set it up. You put 2 lights like that behind you. You have a key light over in front of you, and a fill light on the other side. So you can use one of these as a fill light, the other 2 as your color lighting. And then instead of buying this kit that has 2 of them, you could just go over here and I think, let's see, newer 600 watt video light. Let's see here. This is the one that I believe that I use here. Let's see, it's not that one. I'll have to look it up. Oh, there we go. SL60W. It's this one that I've got. Yeah, there we go. Purchase 2020. So it's basically this, and then you've just got to buy a softbox to go on top of it. So you can buy like that softbox there, or you can even buy I have more of like the octagon shaped one in front of me versus the square. So you can just say like they all use this thing called a Bowens mount, octagon softbox. And then when you buy that and you get something like this, you can get, you know, any of these types of soft boxes and they'll just clip right into that light there. And so that's what I use. Obviously it's more expensive, you know, that light. I mean, this setup will be $200, whereas like, you know, you can get both of these lights here for probably cheaper than that. Yeah, $111. But these are not the highest quality lights. I mean, you're literally using like CFL bulbs versus like the actual light that you get through here is like an LED bulb. You can kind of change the color. You can really adjust the temperature or the strength of it. So it gives you more flexibility. It's more accurate. The color looks a lot better. So yeah, so that would be the way you could do it. You could either buy these and these, or get this and then just get one extra, you know, nicer light with softbox. Down here, these are just random stuff that I've got, you know, for video editing, like my setup. I use everything on a Mac. Let's see, I've got my extra monitor. I've got my docking station. A lot of people say, what do you edit with? I use Final Cut Pro. External monitor, super important. I highly recommend an external monitor, especially if you are using like a teleprompter or anything that's going to be blocking the screen. Because like, for instance, for me, the way I've got my setup is my camera sits between 2 external monitors, right? And so the lens comes out and sticks out between these 2 monitors. But then if I was to like flip around the screen on my camera, the monitor would block it. I wouldn't be able to see it. And so I've got an external monitor that sits on top of my camera, kind of like on this picture here. And that way I can see what I'm recording or what's going on. Because trust me, when you start making videos, nothing is more frustrating than like recording the whole video, getting the footage, putting it on your computer, watching it back, and realizing the whole thing is out of focus because you had a setting that was off. Or like you start recording and then halfway through it turned off because you filled up your disc and you didn't see it, right? Or that you just didn't even hit record sometimes, right? Because you don't know it, you don't see it if you're not looking at the screen. And so I don't look at the screen all the time because, if I looked at the screen this whole time, you'd see the bottom of my eyes. I look at the lens when I'm recording, but I can glance up and just make sure, okay, yeah, everything's good, and keep going, right? So you don't record a whole video and miss out. So here's kind of the monitor that I use for that. Whenever I am vlogging, I like this. This is kind of what I use to hold my camera and kind of have it spaced out a little bit further from me. And it's also a nice little tripod in a pinch that'll stand up on its own. I put this little ball head on top of this switch pod, so that way I have a little bit more adjustability with the angle that I want to set my camera up on. Here's the SD cards, here's my backpack, here's a little organizer for like cables and whatnot. Filter case, that's where I put like my ND filter just to keep it safe. I got some bungee ties, lavalier mic. I mean, in a pinch, like I'll use a lavalier mic if I'm shooting on like my iPhone. Sometimes, I don't always do this, but if I do want a better quality video and all I've got is my phone, the biggest thing with phones is most of the time the audio quality is not very good. The video quality is good. It's not as good as like a DSLR, but it is good. And so if you can just upgrade your audio, a lot of times the video can look pretty good. And so I just will have this, it just sits in my camera bag. It's super small. I can plug it right into my iPhone. And when I record videos, the audio, basically the lavalier will sit right here. And the audio is 10 times better than what you would get if you were just, using the audio from the iPhone. This is a stabilizer. I mean, if you're really getting like cinematic and you want some real, like maybe it's for like listing videos and you're recording your own listing videos and you just want like shaky footage, getting a stabilizer can definitely help. It uses like a gimbal, which, so like if you're moving left to right, back to forward, it basically just centers that camera so it doesn't move. Pretty cool equipment. It's worth it if you are shooting stuff like that, like your own listing videos or anything cinematic. Drones, I've got the Mavic 2 Pro still. I love that one. I've not upgraded to the 3 yet. The 2 still gives great, footage. It's more than fine. And then of course now now I'm on the iPhone 13. Whatever the latest one is, that's the one I got. I'll lose track of the numbers sometimes. But the 13, whatever that new one is, that's the one I've got. Pretty much anytime a new iPhone comes out, I just upgrade to it. But yeah, so there you go. So that's kind of all the equipment that I use. Oh, teleprompter. If you do want to use a teleprompter, I don't have that on here, but let me show you. The one that I use is the DeskView T3, I believe it's called. Yeah, this one here. There you go. Yep, this is the teleprompter. And the cool thing about this teleprompter is really small. You can bring it with you. In fact, here, I'll show you. It's this one right there. So, I mean, that's how big it is, right? It's not very big. And I mean, the good thing about a teleprompter is especially if you're shooting like an advertisement or something that you want to be very specific about what you want to say, they come in, handy, very, very much so. No pun intended. But if you want to say specific things, then it's definitely helpful to have to have a teleprompter like that. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to, read off a teleprompter. I just want to go at it. Well, by all means, do it. Come up with an outline and then just kind of free flow. But, I know for me even is sometimes like having a teleprompter that keeps me on task of what I want to say is important because, I mean, that's why I love these live calls because, I mean, I can, do a YouTube video and be on a video for an hour. But like if all of my videos were an hour, they wouldn't do well, right? Because like, I'm pretty long-winded, so like something that it should only be an 8-minute video, I'd probably still talk for, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and it'd be a much longer video. So having something that keeps you on track, I think is, helpful sometimes. Plus, then it also might give you confidence. Like if you're like, oh, I just, I don't know that I want to be on video. If getting a teleprompter helps you to be more confident, because now you just can read the script that you write, ahead of time, then do it. Whatever gets you in the game. So is kind of my thought there. But that's it. That's a lot of the equipment. It looks like here we're, getting to the top of the hour. So I appreciate all of y'all's questions. I did see a couple questions come in that I was not able to respond to. And so I will go ahead and queue those up for next week. So definitely be on here next Tuesday. And if you haven't liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. That definitely helps. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I look forward to seeing everybody next week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.